Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make a contribution on behalf of the people of Dennery North to the Appropriation Bill 2018-2019. Mr. Speaker, this morning I want to thank God for the strength, the courage, the fortitude, the patience, the tolerance and humility to serve my country and community in a parliamentary capacity for almost 7 years. I want to also thank my loved ones for their support and understanding as it relates to the demands of my job. I also want to thank, Mr. Speaker, the many people who lift me in prayers on a daily basis. Pastor Caius Alfred of the SDA Church, Pastor Shunus Isidore, Pastor Terry John, Pastor Roger Stevens, all of whom are of the Adventist faith. Father Situt, Father Benjamin all the way in Nigeria, Deacon Popo, Pastor Senfor, and many others, Mr. Speaker, who make it their duty every day to lift me up in prayers. And it is their prayers and the support of my friends, my loved ones, and my constituents that fuel that passion, that drive me to deliver on behalf of the people of Dennery North and by extension, the people of St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, today I want to thank the people of Dennery North once again for having reposed their collective confidence in my ability to champion their cause in the parliament of our country. The people of Dennery North, a lion-hearted people, a proud people, a hard-working people, a loving people. The people of Grand Riviere, the people of Richfond, the people of Grand Ravine, Gadet, La Pelle, Larissos, Despin, Oleon, Belmont, and of course, Mr. Speaker, the community I've had the pleasure of calling home from since the day I was born up to a day like today, the beloved community of Dennery Riviere, where I live, where I attended school, and where I find a place I can call a true sanctuary. Mr. Speaker, like the Prime Minister before me, I want to take the opportunity to congratulate the St. Lucia Police team on winning the Regional Police T20 competition. And like the PM, I also want to congratulate my friend and former national teammate, Mr. Shervin Charles, for having been awarded Player of the Tournament. I also want to congratulate the young St. Lucians who gave representation to our country at the Carifta Games. The fortunes were not very favorable, but the effort at representing country is something we all must be proud of and something we must encourage. The Carifta swim team is in Jamaica as I speak, Mr. Speaker, and they too must be congratulated for going out there to put forward an effort for raising the profile or the sports profile of our country. As I speak, Mr. Speaker, there's a delegation that will be representing St. Lucia at the Commonwealth Games in Australia. They too must be spared a thought. Mr. Speaker, there is a young man who's a Form 3 student at the St. Mary's College. His name is Akim Auguste. He is the under-15 captain for Team St. Lucia, cricket team that is. In the recently concluded Windward Islands under 15 cricket championship held in St. Vincent, he registered 2 centuries, 138 against Grenada and an unbeaten 100 against Dominica. He was named the best player of the tournament, and he was rewarded by being made captain of the Windwards under 15 team. Currently, Akim is leading the Windwards team in Cricket West Indies, or what is formerly known as the WICB, West Indies Cricket Board, under 15 tournament in Jamaica. But Akim is not the only St. Lucian on the team. He's accompanied by compatriots Ryan Goodman, Skylar Fay, Amari Venner, and Stefan Theodore. Mr. Speaker, it is important that we send a very important, a very significant message to these youngsters at an early age, that what they do in the name of national representation is something that we are all very proud of. And this would go a long way in encouraging them to strive for even greater heights as they continue to discharge their responsibilities to country. Mr. Speaker, it was after having contributed to the debate on the estimates, I learned of the passing of a friend and former schoolmate, Francis Libo de Lima. He was a contemporary of mine at St. Mary's College. I think he must have been maybe a year or two ahead. But today, Mr. Speaker, albeit belatedly, I want to express condolences to his family, his friends, and the music fraternity. Now, I must confess and admit this morning that it was a very difficult exercise trying to decide on an approach or a posture for the debate on the appropriation bill, given all what had gone out in the media, probe, investigation, and all kinds of things were said in the mainstream media and on social media. And I had to ask myself, do I come into this honorable chamber this morning? Should I come out swinging? Should I keep my composure? Or do I stick to the real issues before us in terms of how the policies or lack thereof in the budget address would impact the hardworking, beloved, proud people of Dennery North? I want to state from the outset that I will not fall into the trap where I give any semblance of credence to the government's obvious diversion tactics and strategy to spend time or waste time playing defense as it relates to any investigation involving me or any agency that I provided oversight for when I was the minister. You would have thought that in the weeks leading up to the debate on the appropriation bill, the government would have been in a position to excite the base, excite the populace by dropping snippets of what is to come in the appropriation bill. But instead, using very craftily and strategically some of their surrogates in mainstream media and in other facets of society, they decided to talk about investigations, Jufali, minister's account. And interestingly, it has moved from national lotteries to minister's account. But I'm going to say this morning. The day you can find $1 that cannot be accounted for at the National Lotteries Authority, come and talk to me. The day you can find $1 that was not spent on youth development and sports at the National Lotteries Authority, come and talk to me. Until such time, I am allowing you to probe and investigate. Gouvernement a parlé musique about investigation. L'année où pour ça ou ça? Pour silence nous. Empêcher nous parler. Et là yo venir que parler about investigation, yo quoi nous quoi pas. Nous kay couiller dans un coin. Nous pas parler. Moi ka dit en créole comme on dit ça là en anglais. Joua gouvernement flambeau. Ça joine $1 that nous pas ça account for. Et nous pas ça dit ça nous fait pays national lotteries, c'est jour moi parler ba yo about investigation. Et joua yo ça joine $1 qui partait taper servi en les youth exports qu'on loi dit pour lotteries, c'est jour ça moi parler ba yo. But until such time, là ni top passe droit gouvernement ça la faire cette lycéen that nous supposé parler about Jordia. And as I said, I am in Parliament for one reason. I am not here for self-praise or for any kind of praise. My presence here is to give voice to the concerns of the people of Dennery North. And I've said before, people who toiled, who worked hard on the banana estates and the banana plantations to make an honest contribution, to keep the cash flow going in this country, to help build infrastructure. It is their passion, their concerns, their problems, their plight that gives credence and justification to my presence in this house. I'm not here for any battle. I'm not here to score points. I know who I am. I am satisfied with who I am. And I know the worth of Shawn Edward. So, Mr. Speaker, and it was the member for Castries South who alluded to it, the Prime Minister came here on a day, Tuesday, to present the budget address. And nowhere in the budget address that was circulated do we have any pronouncement about investigation. But that is the diversion tactics. This is what will excite his base. Investigate Sebuk Zara, investigate Hile, investigate Shawn, investigate Kenny. C'est cette investigation qui vous est faite à payer cette ici? What about the ongoing investigations involving members of the government? If you are going to report on investigation, and if you want to call yourself a champion of good governance, talk about all investigations. Do not be selective in terms of which one you want to talk about or which one you want to play out in the public domain. But as I said, I will not be sidetracked. I am proud of the stewardship that I provided as Minister for Youth Development and Sports in this country. And the day this government can come up with evidence that $1, the equivalent of a tamarind ball, cannot be accounted for under my stewardship at the National Lotteries Authority, that is the day I will engage them. And the day they can tell you that monies at lotteries were spent on things other than youth development and sports as mandated by the Act, that is the day I will engage in conversation. So don't come and bamboozle people and divert attention away from the real issues. We have real issues in this country. And as a parliament, and I mean that objectively, all 17 of us have a responsibility to this country. It cannot be a case where when the government is going about its business, there's no role for the opposition. Anybody who does not understand the seriousness of what confronts St. Lucia today is making a grave mistake. And if you happen to be an occupant of this chamber and you don't understand it, you don't deserve your place in here. I am committed to national development. I love my country. I've represented my country in many different capacities. And it is always an honor for me to do so, Mr. Speaker. But today I find myself serving in a capacity where I understand that I must contribute objectively and meaningfully to ensuring that there is an enabling environment in this country so that the generation after persons like myself will have something to build on for the betterment of St. Lucia. That is what I believe, Mr. Speaker, and that is what I champion. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister came here on Tuesday and he presented a budget statement, the appropriation bill. And this is supposed to be a package that encapsulates all the things that the government will do within a one-year period to better the lot of the average St. Lucian. Ça c'est côté Prime Minister qui a venu dire tout ça et qui a fait pour faire cette liste en première place. But you know what? The Prime Minister's budget address on Tuesday evening can best be described as what in music circles we call a remix. That was a remix. But what is a remix? In a remix, the lyrics or the contents of the song is the same old thing that you'd have heard. But what gives meaning to a remix is that you change the beat. So today you have the same words in country and western, but it's very possible to hear that in reggae, with a reggae beat a year or two down the road. The words are not new. The beat changes, but the words are not new. And according to the Collins Dictionary, a remix is a new version of a piece of music which has been created by putting together the individual, instrumental, and vocal parts in a different way. That's as a noun, because that particular word can exist as a noun as well as a verb. And if you want to look at a remix, the verb, it is to remix or rearrange a piece of music to make a new version of it by putting together the individual instrumental and vocal parts in a different way. What was so refreshing? What was new about the contents of the budget address? It lacked originality. It was uninspiring. It was incoherent. It was laced with evidence of cut and paste. It was unimaginative. Simply put, It was boring, Mr. Speaker. It was a very lousy attempt at remixing. What was in there? The silting of Roseau Dam. What is new about talk in this honorable chamber about the desilting of Roseau Dam? St. Jude reconstruction. The need to construct Hall of Justice. Execution of capital projects through bolt arrangements. These are things we've heard before. These have been around for some time. Island-wide Wi-Fi. GNet. New headquarters for the police. The loss of treated water through leaks in the main distribution infrastructure of Wasco, to name a few. But what is interesting to note is that very few, if any, of the aforementioned areas had their genesis in a or emanated from a cabinet room of the United Workers' Party. The majority of what I've mentioned here are initiatives that would have been started by the St. Lucia Labour Party. Nothing new. A lot of recycled stuff. The Prime Minister also alluded to the fact, or he gave the impression, that there will be no new taxes. That is a bluff. And when he said it, you should have seen the members on the other side pounding the table. Now, technically, he might be right. There are no new taxes, but here's the catch. And that is why I believe at every opportunity, government must engage the people frankly. There are times as a government, you must eyeball the populace and tell them this is the situation that confronts our country. And that everybody has a responsibility to lift St. Lucia and to push St. Lucia forward. There are situations that will call for that. But when you come, ekou vini, ekou ka di nou, la pani tax nef. That might be correct. Anything, Mr. Speaker, for example, someone is paying for water, $100 a month. You pay for electricity, $100 a month. You pay for telephone, $100 a month. At the end of the month, you are paying $300. But if you come the following year and you say to people, you know what? I was thinking of asking you to pay land tax. But you know what? I don't want to increase the taxes, so you're not paying for land. You'll just pay for electricity, you'll pay for water and telephone. But instead of paying $100, you pay $200 for each. So instead of paying $300 at the end of the month, you're paying $600, where the government is taking more out of the pockets of St. Lucians than what they would have gotten initially. Premier Minister dit that la pani tax nef en budget sala. Technically, ça le Premier Ministre dit vrai. Because si vous avez payé pour l'eau, vous avez payé pour courant, et vous avez payé pour téléphone. Et tous les années, vous avez payé $100 pour chaque. L'année a fini, vous avez pour payer $300. Mais ça, il fait, il pas mettre un taxe neuf pour payer pour tech by comme ça. Il quitte même toi là. Mais au Dieu vous avez payé $100 pour chaque, vous avez payé $200 pour chaque. So là, le gouvernement a pris from vous, il presse 2 fois ça, il est point, même s'il n'a pas de taxe neuf. And that is the deception. And that is the thing that will escape and elude the average St. Lucian. Mr. Speaker, there are times, as I said, you have to level with the people. There are times when situations confront a country that is not necessarily the doing of the Prime Minister. Because we all have admitted that there are times when external factors may impact what happens down here. And for the first time, it was refreshing to hear. But again, it is something that an adage that has been around for a while. You campaign in poetry, and you govern in prose. In other words, ça ou ka di l'opposition vous voulez voter, c'est pas ça ou ka di le gouvernement. And for the first time, you heard the Prime Minister saying that St. Lucia is part of the global community and that whatever happens, but they didn't know that, when they were in opposition. But they always chide us and make it seem as if we are the ones who have a particular posture in opposition and a different one in government. Mr. Speaker, the member for Castries East has spoken time and again about victimization and how vindictive the United Workers' Party government has been. Mr. Speaker, I have in my constituency a gentleman who had worked at the Lariso Cemetery for years. For years, Joseph Kelly, better known as Vaz. He had been employed at the cemetery for years. He has 2 differently abled children. His wife is unemployed. When the UWP came into office, they fired him. During the time that he was working at the cemetery, he approached courts to buy a little television set so his children can enjoy TV. He and his common law wife can enjoy TV like everybody else in the neighborhood. As soon as they came into office, they fired him. And shortly thereafter, where he bought his television, the company came knocking, ready to repossess. Ready to repossess. Today, he's out of a job. Friends were able to help him out to salvage the situation. But you know what is most disconcerting about that? The job was taken away from him, a man with 2 differently abled children, and given to a supporter of the UWP who's approaching his 80th birthday, who doesn't have any child to send to school. Now, I'm not against anybody working, but that should not be allowed to happen. This is wrong. This is unconscionable, and we have to stop it. When I assumed the office of Parliamentary Rep for Dennery North, it's an experience I've shared before. We had to peruse, evaluate, examine, and review the bus transportation system for the schools. All drivers in Dennery North, whom I met on the program, were retained. Non-UWP supporters, all of them, with the exception of one who had been using an SUV to transport children to Viewfort for months. He was not meeting his end of the contract. He had to be dismissed. And another person, because of his own stupidity, lost his contract. All other drivers of the United Workers' Party, every single one of the others, was retained. Those who had free contracts, we arranged for 2 of them to have been relinquished so that they were left with 1. Those who had 3 and 4, the same was done. As soon as they came into office in 2016, every single bus driver on the program who was perceived to be a member of or a supporter of the St. Lucia Labour Party was dismissed. More than 95%. Dismissed. Now, I will never, ever subscribe to that kind of politics. And people have said to me, I'm stupid because they don't want to party fire you. People have loans to pay. They have mortgages to service. They have children to send to school. I need to go to bed at night with a conscience that is clear. I need to be able to sleep at night well, Mr. Speaker. And I cannot see myself interfering in the lives of people, for it to come back and bite me and haunt me down the road. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister in his budget address, and one would have thought that given the paltry amount allocated to youth development and sports, there would have been more disclosure in terms of where the Prime Minister was going to get the funding for all of the projects that he mentioned and projects that were also mentioned by members on the other side. But consistent with a low capital allocation for the Ministry of Sports, the government must turn to the National Lotteries Authority to fund these projects. Sometime between 2014 and 2016, the Ministry of Sports that I presided over suffered a massive budget cut. Massive. But the programs of youth development and sports in the country had to continue. And so we turned to the National Lotteries Authority to do all the projects and all the work that we did. Today, the same lotteries for which I'm being crucified is where the money is going to come from. But it would really, really pain me and the sportsmen and women of St. Lucia to learn that the majority of the funding will be placed in the hands of a man who does not even understand the domestic issues, and for him to be receiving monies in the name of a consultancy. As I said, I'm proud of the leadership that I provided to that particular agency. And the calculated efforts geared at defaming me will not work. I give Jack his jacket when I have to. And I also give Harry his jarry. The Prime Minister on page 24 of the budget address spoke about, well, to an extent, saying that we have too many facilities in this country, based on the report of the consultant. More than 160 sports facilities. And according to the Prime Minister, that equates to one facility for every 1.5 square miles. Mr. Speaker, is that another way of saying that we are going to effectively decommission some of the playing fields? Is that a subtle explanation for the number of abundant playing fields we have in the country today? Is that a justification for playing fields being an eyesore today and being in a dilapidated state today all over the island? And it does not matter whether it is a constituency represented by a member of the UWP or the St. Lucia Labour Party. And he also insinuated that we have issues with respect to maintaining playing fields. Let's give Jack his jacket and give Harry his jarry. 2 years ago, when you assumed office, the playing fields of St. Lucia were in a modern, pristine condition. The playing fields in St. Lucia had never been in a better condition than when you came in. Mr. Speaker, a hub in Dennery South and Miku. That's another cluster. Dennery South is UWP. Miku North is UWP. Deriso is UWP. So this little cluster of UWP constituencies have all of a sudden become a hub. The Prime Minister also went on to say that infrastructure alone will not equate or maximize sports benefits. And that I agree with, 100%. Infrastructure alone will not cut it for us. But when the St. Lucia Labour Party came into office, we placed a lot of emphasis on revolutionizing the sports infrastructure at the community level, even before we paid much attention to the national facilities. And that is very important. You cannot have strong national teams. You cannot produce quality national players if you do not have strong programs at the community level. You must have a sports culture in the country that will encourage young persons to gravitate towards sports. And creating a sports culture means that every sector of the population must be roped in and must be brought in. So there's a place for veterans football and veterans cricket. There's a place for early childhood sports. There's a place to encourage the grandmother and the great-grandmother to come to the field to watch a grandchild or a child in creating a sports culture. But what sports can you play without proper facilities? So we embarked on a program to rehabilitate playing fields and playgrounds in every community. Those that we were not able to resurface and put infrastructure on, at least there was basic maintenance. But it pains me, and I remember in the mid-90s, as a national under-19 player, at 2 o'clock and 1 o'clock, I had to go on the field to roll the pitch if I wanted a knock ahead of the West Indies under-19 tournament. And I said to myself that I can never be a sports minister in this country and allow that to happen. And that is why, when the average school child left school, the pitch was already prepared. It was not his responsibility to try and raise funds to buy fuel to get the grass cut. These are the things that we postulated, we pushed, and we encouraged. But today, we've been told in very subtle ways that 160 or 165 playing facilities, that number is too high. And we've seen the subtle decommissioning of some facilities. The Lapel playing field in Dennery North is abandoned. The Moncaine playing field is abandoned. All over the weekend, there was a cricket match, Monrepo under-19 versus Switzerland under-19. I could not believe what I saw at the PI playing field. Totally unacceptable. And this is wrong. I said in the debate on the estimate that this is wrong. We owe the young people much better than we are serving. And this is not a matter for Labour to score points or for the UWP to score points. This is something that we have to tackle collectively and ensure that we provide proper facilities for our youngsters. And of course, sport is a meaningful avenue for which the human potential can be realized. We boast about Brian Lara, Usain Bolt, and all other athletes around the world. We are just as rich, if not a repository of talent that is much richer than what obtains in the wider Caribbean. We've demonstrated that the talent is here, but we lose our players somewhere along the way. We have to create the enabling environment. We have to put the infrastructure in place at the level of community, and we have to get the programs going. And that is why I said I agreed that infrastructure alone will not do it. But you would have thought that when the UWB came in, they were going to build on the work that we had done in terms of infrastructure development in sports. Come with the coaching programs. Come with the different community activities. On any given Sunday or Saturday, 2-3 years ago in this country, you could have gone into any community and thousands of St. Lucians were congregating at playing fields because there were programs at the community level. These days, you can only go to aqua melee and activities of this nature. There's no vibe in the country at the moment as it relates to sports. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister spoke about the creation of a school for the creative industries and one for sports. These are wonderful ideas. These are brilliant ideas. But how does that work? How is that going to work? If a child from Labrie who has shown an aptitude for sports is doing well, has been identified as an athlete with the potential to become elite, if that child resides in Labrie, am I to assume that the child will be moving to Grosile to attend the sports school in Grosile? How does it work? How does it work? Maybe we'll get an explanation from the member for Dennery South who shoulders the portfolios of youth development and sports. And the same for the creative industries. What happens to a child from Moshi who can make it big in the creative industries? Is that child required to travel to Angers Secondary, which is the school that will be transformed into a creative industry center? Is that child required to travel to Angers almost every day? No explanation. But as I said, maybe the member for Dennery South will, Mr. Speaker, provide the explanation that we need in that regard. Mr. Speaker, during our time, we installed lights on 9 community facilities, 2 courts and 7 playing fields. Marsha, Larissus, Ancillary, Philip Maslin, Dennery. Well, the lights have been taken down at Dennery, I've been told, to make way for lighting fixtures that are of a different kind. Miku, Bellevue, and Fonse Jacques Courts, Mr. Speaker. We constructed 6 community pavilions and changing rooms. Ancillary, Canneries, Larissus, Fonso, Marigot, Philip Maslin was rehabilitated, and in Fort Saint-Jacques, on the court that we built in Fort Saint-Jacques. Rehabilitated 12 major playing fields. Philip Maslin, Larissus, Marshall, Ancillary, Marigot, Bexon, Soufret, Lapel, Grand Ravine, Grand Riviere Dennery, Fonso, the Morne playing field, and we started work on the Pero playing field. The Morne playing field, yes, Fonso in the constituency of Babono. I'm certain about that. Mr. Speaker, the Morne playing field, it's more than a playing field. Every single day when you have cruise ships in the harbor, at least somewhere between 500 to 1,000 tourists drive through the college compound. You have very pristine buildings, well-manicured lawns at the OECS and the different divisions at the college. But at the heart of the compound is a jungle called the playing field. A jungle where the grass is more than 6 feet tall in some areas. And for years, that existed there. And nobody seemed concerned. Nobody did anything about it. We met with the college administration. And today, or at least when we left office, the Morne playing field had one of the best services in the country. Just recently, I drove by, and I noticed the vines were taking over the fence again. Work How can you have a college, your premier educational institution, and no provisions for recreation and sport? That cannot be right. We rolled out a playing field maintenance program where close to 100 St. Lucians were leaving home on a daily basis to go and look after the sporting facilities of our country. That is what we did. And we supported elite and emerging athletes. We created a sports scholarship desk. And I always, as minister, tried to underscore that important nexus between sports and the academics. You cannot be a talented sportsman in 2018, 2019 and just rely on your talent alone. That's not enough. We have to encourage the development of the athletic ability and the students' academic performance and what they do in the classroom. Today, I'm proud of the fact that Yasmin Saint-Ange from the community of Grosili, who was the captain of the St. Lucia ladies team, cricket, has graduated with a bachelor's degree from the Kville campus, supported by the St. Lucia National Lotteries Authority. Larry Edward, the latest St. Lucian to play first-class cricket. Larry got accepted at Kville. He had played for St. Lucia and the Windward Islands, but he wanted to further his education. And we were committed to ensuring that Larry's cricket would not have suffered as a result of a desire to go to university. We funded the bulk of his tuition and living expenses in Barbados through the National Lotteries Authority. Today, Larry is a permanent fixture on the Windward senior cricket team, and he has graduated with a bachelor's degree. Dwight Thomas, Dalton Polius, Bronte Bess, Marlene Preville, and several others received assistance through the National Lotteries Authority. You know why? Because some of them, Mr. Speaker, they cannot get employment in St. Lucia. They cannot. The job market cannot absorb them. So they get a little break to play league cricket in the UK. And there, they're killing two birds with one stone. Although the environmentalists don't like that analogy anymore. They don't want us to kill the birds. They get to play cricket where they're refining their skills on a continuous basis, and they also get a form of employment, coming back home at the end of the season with a decent amount to look after themselves and their families. And they used to come to us with proper documentation to ask that we provide some assistance, at least a plane ticket. And we did that for 4.5 years. When Dalton Polius, a man who has played under 15 cricket for St. Lucia and the Windward Islands, a young man, under 19 cricket for St. Lucia and the Windward Islands, a man who has played senior cricket for St. Lucia and the Windward Islands, is asking the government of the United Workers' Party for a plane ticket. Just pay a ticket for him. He'll take care of himself in England. He was rejected by the UWP government and told that the lotteries cannot pay that for him. Are we serious about youth development and sports in this country? We can't pay a plane ticket for Dalton Polius, but we can give one corporate entity $24 million in the form of a tax break. And I've told you the Kimani story. I was shocked to wake up one morning to see a particular talk show host with an account number on screen asking people to go and contribute monies for Kimani Melius. Now, whether the government took care of Kimani subsequent to that, it should never have gotten to that level, because we knew early enough that the young man was going to be on the West Indies team to travel to New Zealand for the Youth World Cup. But you know what? They're punishing people. Where are the priorities of the government? We funded community programs in a number of constituencies. Competitions were held in all the constituencies. And as I said, there was a buzz in the country as it relates to sports. We procured hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment distributed to schools, clubs, and national teams. I don't know how the current minister feels about it. And you don't have to be a minister for sport to feel about it. But there's nothing that pains me more than when I go to the Beausejour cricket facility for inter-secondary school track and field to see girls and boys digging their toes into the grass, barefooted. They can't afford a track shoe. And what some schools do, you give the school 3 or 4 pairs of track shoes, and they vary the sizes, so that after this girl runs 100 meters with this pair of track shoes, they take it from her to give to a boy to run the 1,500 meters. We are tempted to put track shoes on the feet of the student athletes in our school system. But I'm being investigated for that. I'm being investigated for that. And if that is what you're going to investigate me for, you have to investigate me for the rest of my life. You have to investigate me for the rest of my life. And I will say again, the day you can find $1 that cannot be accounted for the National Lotteries Authority is the day I will talk to you about investigation. The day you can find $1 that was not spent on youth development and sports, I will talk to you about investigation. But are we really serious about young people in this country? We instituted, Mr. Speaker, a school sports award, where at the end of the sporting year for schools, we had a special awards away from the national awards to pay, to give recognition to the student athletes who would have excelled. Sports scholarship desk. There are several solutions, and I heard the member for Soufrière mention a couple from his constituency, and I need to congratulate them, and I hope more from his constituency and other constituencies will get that break. But a number of solutions who came. Some we had to source the scholarships for, and those who were able to get scholarships outside the formal arrangement of the government, we assisted, whether by way of a plane ticket or we had to absorb some of the expenses for them. And during that period, as I said, not only was there a buzz in the country, St. Lucia won 9 regional championships. 9 championships in the year 2014. That was the most since 1987. That was the most. And in 1 year, we had 9. And under my ministerial watch, we had 24. And that prompted a song. In 87, St. Lucia was the champion. Somebody wrote a song about that. And that is the path we were on for youth development and sports. We were able to strengthen our working relationship with the media. Again, going back to the creation of that sports culture, you must have slots in mainstream media for the coverage of sports. Mr. Speaker, youth development and sports is a very important area. But the government needs to stop paying lip service and deliver to the young people of this country. Mr. Speaker, I noticed there was nothing said in the budget per se about agriculture. But these days, agriculture has become synonymous with bananas. You say agriculture, and you're basically saying bananas. You say bananas, and you're basically saying agriculture. My position on agriculture and banana cultivation in this country is clear. Very consistent, very clear. Anything done to support farmers, I am for it. But I suspect the farmers are being taken for a ride. Because, and it is a point that I picked up from the member for Beaufort North during his presentation, during the debate on the estimates, you cannot increase tonnage and production if you don't have a plan to fight black sigatoka. It is impossible. And I have a particular constituent. He has 20 acres under cultivation. And the 20 acres are spread over 3 farms. He comes to me and he says to me, almost broken, that he has been disqualified. She asked him, what do you mean by that? He said to me that he's having a tremendous amount of difficulty controlling black sigatoka. And there's a particular geographic portion of my constituency, which you know very well, Mr. Speaker. That main stretch that we refer to as the Mambrou stretch. That section leading to La Pelle all the way down to Lime. If you really want to have an appreciation of what black sigatoka is doing, every farmer in that general area has been disqualified. And if you want to have an appreciation of that problem, you need to go up on the hill by Danza, Lime, to see how black sigatoka is wreaking havoc with the farms, in that particular area. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge the government to handle or to tackle that black sigatoka problem once and for all. Let us be a little more proactive where that is concerned. Whereas I understand that you want to increase tonnage and you want to export more bananas, let us, Mr. Speaker, tackle the black sigatoka so as to give our farmers a breathing space. The contribution of bananas to our development is well documented, and I don't want to go through this again. The Prime Minister also spoke about roads and bridges. Mrs. Speaker, how much time do I have? Half an hour left, right?
About 16 minutes.
16?
Yes.
Thank you. Roads and culverts. The Prime Minister made reference to that in his budget address. But I have a question here. Whereas the Prime Minister was eloquently telling the nation about the proposed reconstruction of the cul-de-sac and Wavin-Prasson Bridge, I have one question. Who signed the agreement in Trinidad and Tobago with the Japanese through the JICA program for the reconstruction of the Wavin-Prasson and cul-de-sac bridges? The member for Grosile mentioned all the roads in his constituency were being attended to, and how his 150 tax on the gas was working for him. In every constituency island-wide, we are paying the 152, Mr. Speaker. And whereas I've expressed my gratitude for the Oleon Road, and I sincerely want to say thank you on behalf of the constituency and Oleon, I'm hoping that the 150 being paid by Master White and Trevor Wells and Kerry and all the other persons from Lapel, they will be in a position to say that their 150 is working for them as well. Mr. Speaker, the Richford Ring Road needs attention. And like the people of Lapel, Makakwe, c'est Jean Wifon, you can pay 150 duties en les gas pour tout le monde, et yo tout, kay jwen chime yo tape adresse. Healthcare is a sore point, and it is something that everybody in here has alluded to. And there seems to be a collective admission that we need to do more as a country, as a parliament, as responsible citizens for healthcare in this country. But Mr. Speaker, today, the Larissus Health Center is still out of commission. And I see the elderly folk walking the highway from Richford into the inner communities of the valley. A health center that had been in existence long before I was born, which serves the main catchment areas of the constituency. When we left office, there was an allocation of $271,000 for the rehabilitation and refurbishment of the Larissus Health Center that was destroyed by fire. Gouvernement le ba quitté plus que $271,000 pour un health center à Larissus. Gouvernement ça la vini yo tié. Et un jour qu'aujourd'hui, moi passe à dire Dennery North, Jean Larissus, ou Lyon, Belmont, etc. d'autres places là qui jouent you can join health center. I also spoke about the closure of the Dennery Hospital at midnight. I'm hoping very sincerely that the government will look into that. The catchment area for the Dennery Hospital is too wide. People from Monrepo, Lombard, Toalin, all the way to Tamazo go to the Dennery Hospital for services after hours. And if you happen to have a problem at 12:15, you either find a bus on private hire or a friend to give you a ride to go to Vieux-Fort at St. Jude, or you have to cross the Badlil and go to Victoria Hospital. We have too many trained doctors and healthcare professionals in this country for that to be allowed to continue. And I'm hoping, Mr. Speaker, that the Dennery Hospital will soon from today be in a position to provide 24-hour services to the people of the Dennery Basin and environs. The Prime Minister in his budget address mentioned the Dennery Polyclinic. And again, it is a project being claimed by the United Workers' Party. Who presided over the site clearance in 2015? Where was the United Workers' Party in 2015? Were you in government in 2015? Site clearance had been done. A number of returning walls had been constructed. Today you come and you claim that project. We've heard a lot said about St. Jude's, and I'm sure the members on this side who represent the southern constituencies will have a lot to say about St. Jude's. The member or members opposite said that there were no plans for St. Jude's. But somebody is either forgetting or somebody is misrepresenting the situation. because I have heard the former Minister of Health in the UWP administration come out and publicly state that there were plans approved by the UWP cabinet, and that is why reconstruction started under them. But today, Mr. Mondesi is saying one thing, and the government is at variance with what he's saying. So who really is speaking the truth as it relates to St. Jude's? But whether it is the government or Mr. Mondesi, the most important thing in this situation is that the people from the South need a proper facility where they can get health care. Mr. Speaker, a lot was said about the police in terms of equipment. Any amount spent to make the work of the police better and to make the police more comfortable, something that will get the support of the member for Dennery North. The police are amongst the most hardworking people in this country. The police are too important to this country for them not to get what they deserve. And if what was articulated in the budget address by way of resources for the police comes through, I'll be very happy for them. The police are not responsible for crime. The police are not responsible for crime in this country. The police have a responsibility to solve crime. But if we don't have the proper social programs in place, where from early we can teach our children right from wrong, the crime situation will continue, it will be exacerbated, it will get worse, and all of us will pay for it one day. So don't make it seem, because I've heard pronouncements in certain circles, where people are trying to make it seem as if it is the commissioner and the high command of the police force that are responsible for crime. That is not true. The people in the high command of the police force, they work hard, but they are dealing, and they have to be the ones, given the structure of our system, to deal with the failures of the system in other areas. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn my attention to sustainable development and energy. The Prime Minister spoke about sustainable development and energy. And to the best of my recollection, our Prime Minister is the lead Prime Minister in that area in the quasi-CARICOM cabinet. Today, we hear how committed our government is to sustainable development and energy. When the United Workers' Party government came in, St. Lucia had the best plans, the best programs as it relates to sustainable development in the entire Caribbean. The Minister for Sustainable Development was not just providing leadership on the national and domestic front, but he had become a regional and an international pioneer in that field, in the person of Dr. James Fletcher. Significant background work went into securing an investment for a wind farm in Dennery, an investment that would have benefited my constituents, both in terms of providing employment and also, Mr. Speaker, helping deal with some of the energy issues we have. Several sites were considered and suitable tests were conducted both by Lucilec and a German technical cooperation agency, GIZ. While two other sites had better wind profiles, there were serious land use conflicts that prevented them from being used. The investor, Wintex, approached the government after having done its own preliminary work to identify a suitable site and hold discussions with the landowners. Following extensive discussions with Lucilec and the government, the decision was made by the investor to proceed with the investment. A test tower was constructed to collect wind data for 1 year. The business model for Lucilec and Wintex, who were going to be the primary owners of the wind farm, with the government, of course, all that work, Mr. Speaker, went down the drain. The investor, after becoming very disappointed with the tardy approach of the government, decided that it was time for him to go. What would have happened, Mr. Speaker? The wind farm would have generated electricity equivalent to 11% of Lucilec's total annual sales. 11%, that wind farm in Dennery. We lost that. It would have generated enough electricity to power 19,475 homes annually. The wind farm would have reduced the amount of diesel fuel purchased by Lucilec annually by almost 2 million gallons. It would have resulted in an injection of over $100 million in direct investment. If the government had continued the work we started, the wind farm would have been fully operational by September of last year. And then we come here and we talk about being sensitive to sustainable development. The street lighting project, Mr. Speaker.
Remember, you have 5 minutes left to conclude your.
The street lighting project, Mr. Speaker. The government of St. Lucia pays Lucilec $11 million for street lights every year. The lights you see light là where Kali met tous les osware. Nous ka payer Lucilec comme gouvernement $11 million tous les années. This is because our street lamps use high pressure sodium bulbs, which use up quite a bit of electricity. There are over 21,000 street lamps on island. And so, prior to the meeting office, the CDB gave a commitment that we would have got to cause the government to get LED lights that would have helped save energy on street lights. And there are a number of other initiatives that we piloted, which we started. Very few of them retained, Mr. Speaker, and today this is the situation that confronts us. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I want to say that I am a proud member of the St. Lucia Labour Party. I am comfortable serving under the leadership of the member for Castries East. I have absolutely no difficulty with the stewardship that he provides. And I heard somebody on the other side try to make it seem as if there was a leadership struggle. There is no leadership struggle in the St. Lucia Labour Party. We are united with our leader. We are going to be the voice of the opposition. We are going to oppose constructively when we have to. We will call a spade when we have to. We will say what has to be said on behalf of the marginalized and the poor of this country. We will ask for the reinstatement of the distress fund because we understand the plight of ordinary people. Mr. Speaker, I want to once again take the opportunity to thank the people of Dennery North and to let them know that it is their confidence in me that drives me. It is the confidence that they place in me that would cause me to rise against the odds. A lot has been thrown at me in very recent times. I know who I am. I know who I am. I'm the product of a single-parent household. My mother worked as a laborer for more than 2 decades at the Cardiff fuel station, weeding and doing what laborers do. I emerged out of that to get a secondary education, a university education. I served many community-based organizations in many different capacities. I was able to provide leadership in a number of areas at a very tender age in my community. And that is why, overwhelmingly, they place their confidence in me to take it to the next level. That is why I'm here today. I know where I'm from. I know where I'm at. Attempts to break my resolve will fail miserably. I will not cower. I will not run. And I will never be silenced by any scare tactics employed by this government. And I will say in closing, when you are able to get $1 that cannot be accounted for at the National Lotteries Authority, I will speak to you about investigation. When you can find $1 that was not spent on the realm of youth and sports, I will talk to you about investigation. In the meantime, we have work to do as an opposition. I have work to do as an MP. I am going to speak to every member in government as it relates to programs and resources for my constituency. Some have demonstrated more maturity than others. They return calls, they respond to your letters. Others don't have the decency to even acknowledge your letters. But you're creating a new St. Lucia. Some of you learned the hard way. You can be very comfortable in the seat of government today. And in no time, you can find yourself on the other side. I have no misgivings about where I'm at today. The people have spoken, and I respect the wishes of the people. But I have a responsibility to country and community, and that I will always do to the best of my ability. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for your indulgence. I want to thank colleagues for their enjoyment, and I want to wish honorable members a very peaceful day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.